Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of our statistics to get an idea of where we're at, sort of overall with the game, and then I think we're just going to go around, identify maybe some more issues with some of our lines, and then potentially look at more cities that we can expand our cargo hub reach to. So one thing that I've noticed on this stretch of track is we've added quite a couple of trains running on these two sets of tracks here, and we can see it's starting to create a little bit of a backup here where some of our trains are now having to queue up at some signals. So I want to figure out how we can help alleviate that issue, as most of those trains end up on these platforms here, or at least coming through them. And so I think what could help is getting more signals in here closer together so these trains don't have themselves spaced out quite as far, which could be a solution. There's not really anything else I can think of besides maybe making our grain line sort of bypass all of this and bypass the cargo hub, but I'm not sure how we'd be able to do that in a way that looks good. That's not just building a giant tunnel from over here to over here. So I think we'll try placing just a few more signals on this set of tracks here, and we'll hope that that works out and allows the trains to continue moving on these sets of tracks. But I don't know if this will fix our issue or make it worse, so we'll just have to keep a close eye on it as we continue to evaluate these situations. And while we're here, I would just want to take a look at some of our lines and industries just nearby. So we have this quarry here that we haven't touched in a little bit. I think first we should maybe smooth out some of the terrain around here that we never did when we first did this. And I wanted to come here and take a look at this, as the goal was to have this up and running at maximum efficiency, but as we can see by the transport number here, that isn't happening. We take a look at the rate on this line, it's only at 553. So let's come in here, take a look. We've unlocked some new trucks since these, so I think we can come in and maybe try out something different. So I think we'll go with these tipper trucks, as they have a capacity of 32, which is a little bit more than this, I believe, or maybe less as the rate went down. But we'll duplicate, I think, 6 of these trucks and see if that gets us close to 800. So that looks like that gets us to 720. Maybe 2 more vehicles and we should be good. So one final one, that gets us up to 830, which is now where we want to be for moving all the stone that this quarry is producing. So then next we'll want to come over to the construction materials plant, and this looks as well like we're not transporting quite enough construction materials out of here. So taking a look at this rate, this is also at 530. I'm not sure if that's what we left it with when we initially intended to set up this line. But we'll duplicate a couple of these vehicles and try to get us up close to 800 on this as well. So it looks like 20 vehicles gets us up to 814, which is now pretty much exactly where we want it. So that should help fill out the demand for some of our construction materials that's waiting at some of our platforms. And taking a look here, it seems like we actually have quite a buildup on some of our truck lines. So let's take a look at these and see if there's anything we can do to empty these platforms. And so it looks like they're not overloaded at the moment. If we come in here to the terminal tab, we can see how full it is on each platform, and we can see we still have a little bit of space left in our storage buildings. to store some more, but I think due to the fact that there is so much waiting here, we could probably increase the amount of trucks that are using these platforms by just a little bit. So first we have our cargo hub to Birmingham line. This is moving stuff at a rate of 431, and I'm not too sure how that maths out with all of our resources up in Birmingham, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to rework the truck stops around this city, then we'll rework these platforms, and then we'll get to the cargo hub. So we'll sort of work backwards towards the cargo hub as we work to fill the demands of all these goods. So the first line we have is here, which I believe covers fuel, construction materials, and machines. So if we take a look at this line, and it looks like that is what it's moving. So I think this truck stop is actually in a really good spot, and we'll leave it here as that covers almost entirely 2 of the 6 resources in the city. Our second truck stop is right here, which I believe this serves the tools and goods demands for the city. I think it might also take food. If we double check over here, it also is moving food. So I'm okay with that also staying there. And I believe that pretty much covers all of our industries on this side of our train station. So then we would just need some truck stops over here to fill the demands of food and machines, it looks like. So luckily for us, we have, I think, 2 extra platforms at our distribution center in Birmingham. So we could probably fit 2, potentially 3 more truck stops in the city. So we could put one here, and this one can do solely machines. We could do another one, perhaps on this road, that does just food. And then we could maybe do one more right over here that does a mix of machines and food. So we'll find our road depot. We'll come in, and it looks like this is a tram depot actually. Our road depot is over here. And so for our machines line, I think we'll go with this flatbed truck, just so it provides some variety in the area. I think if we get 5 of those, that should probably work. We'll have to look at the numbers later on and see if maybe we can decipher what we need exactly. But coming from here, we will want to load just machines, and then of course it'll unload everything at that truck stop. And then as for our food, I think we'll go with this Kenworth box truck, and this we'll go with 6 of these as the trip is slightly longer. So then we'll also set up this line so it only loads food, and it's automatically set up to unload everything. And then lastly, I think we're going to use these trucks here as they have multiple compartments, and this will be what takes machines and food over to this area of the city all the way out here. So then we'll set this up to load machines and food, and we'll set this to about an 80-80 split so that it's not carrying. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. We can just turn these all the way up to 100, because I'm sure the platforms will empty out anyway. We don't need it to split its load every time it leaves. Alright, so coming back here to this truck stop, it seems like this platform here gets overloaded fairly easily. We do only have 4 trucks on here, so I think maybe we'll replace these. We'll choose another smaller, similar truck, and I think that might end up being these 40-ton tarpaulin trucks. So we'll do that. That improves our rate by quite a bit. So I don't think we're going to add any more vehicles. We'll see how that starts to empty out these platforms. But we'll let this run for a bit, wait for the demand to sort of kick in and see where we're at from there. and then if we need to make any more adjustments with vehicles or whatnot, we will come back and do that. However, coming back to the cargo hub and our platforms here, this one is slowly sort of starting to empty out. However, I do think I want to upgrade the vehicles, so we'll grab these, and we have these Peterbilt trucks, which I think we can carry everything we were carrying before on this one here. It looks like we have all 5 of the main resources besides fuel, which is pretty much exactly what we want. So we can just replace those. I think we'll give them a nice color. Maybe a bright red. Ooh, that doesn't look too good. Let's go for a nice dark gray color and see how that looks. I'm not a big fan that it also colors the trailer, so we have to sort of choose a color that looks good on both the vehicle and the trailer itself. But I don't think this looks too terrible, and hopefully it should be carrying the same 5 resources as it was before, but now it really just has slightly more capacity than what it had earlier. So then moving on to our next platform, we have our line that goes to, is this Scottsdale? Yeah, so this one takes our resources here and brings them into Scottsdale. Well, it looks like this one directly delivers them to here, and I think it's solely machines. So, or actually what I think is happening is it's the other line here that shares the platform that's moving food and goods, also as a sort of direct line into Scottsdale. And if we take a look at these numbers, it definitely needs food and goods. Let's see how much we're covering. So I think we could actually move this truck stop up a little bit. So we can move it up a street to probably about here-ish. And that now covers a whole new portion of food and goods, since we demolished probably a little bit here and with this main road. And now I'm not too sure how we do the math to get the rate correct on these types of lines, but I think we can probably just add 2 more vehicles into the mix here, and hopefully that won't be more than what we need, and we'll start to see this slowly empty out. And so next, I think what I want to do is take a look at this line here that comes into this platform, our direct line to Santa Clarita, and I find it a little odd that it's not as full as some of these other ones. It could just be that this one has the highest rate out of the other lines that we run here, but let's just take a look over in Santa Clarita and see maybe if moving our truck stations could help a little bit with that. Alright, so it looks like we have 4 goods being distributed throughout Santa Clarita at the moment. So let's just start here with tools, and because it's going to this stop, let's just make sure it's right where it needs to be for tools. And I suppose that looks right, actually. It doesn't seem like there's that many tools in the city, although I do think the only thing I'd change is maybe move it to this street. So we'll come in here, we'll grab this, find our tool line, and instead of coming here, we'll just move it to our new stop. And so the next line is the goods line, and that one also goes back to this same old stop, which I think could also just be shifted over to where the new one is, and that would also cover all of the goods. So then next we got fuel. Taking a look at where the fuel is. The fuel's a little bit more spread out, and I think if we added a new truck stop probably here-ish, that would cover fuel for that. And so that now means I don't think, well, we have a direct line of machines coming in here from the Santa Clarita Machines Factory. Let's just make sure that that is correct. And I think we could probably benefit by bringing it off the main road with this line, changing it from there to here. And we can now get rid of this one where we no longer have a truck stop on our main road coming into Santa Clarita. So hopefully we'll see some of this traffic clear up as the cars no longer have to wait behind a truck. So then lastly we have our construction materials, which I'm not quite sure where these are going. It looks like they're going here, but that is nowhere near where any of the construction materials is required in this city. And quite honestly, we could probably split it into 2 separate truck lines, where we could have one here and then potentially one all the way out here. So we'll stick with those 2 stops. We'll manage this, and we'll have this line go to this one, and then we'll create a new line and have it go to the other area. So here we'll grab some more flatbed trucks, and we'll get 5 since construction materials is in pretty high demand here at Santa Clarita. And so we'll set a line up from there all the way out to this street. And then finally, we do have this food line here, so that does mean we have all 6 resources coming into the city. Let's just see where this is delivering food to. So it's coming to this stop here, which is an okay spot for food, but I think we can probably move this one over to this street, and then we can do the same thing that we did for construction materials and get a second one all the way out here. So we'll start to get much more demand for food coming into Santa Clarita. And so we'll grab just a few of these trucks and create a new line coming from our cargo port station all the way out here to that truck stop. So now it's going to take a while for the demand to start to kick in on these lines, but while we wait for that to happen, I think let's check the boats that are bringing the food into the city. I'm not too sure where any of those are. So here we've got one, and it's sort of like half full, maybe 2/3 full. That's coming all the way from this food processing plant. And taking a look here, it is working pretty efficiently. It looks like for Santa Clarita, 71 food is getting transported out of this food processing plant for that line. So I think we'll leave the boats there. However, I think we maybe want to add food onto what can be transported into Santa Clarita, because if we check back into the city, these 2 truck stations are linked, so even if we bring food in by trucks, it can get delivered here and then still pop up over here. So we'll have to just make sure that we're not basically running our food line out of business by boat, but that way we'll have a little bit more consistent flow of food coming into the city now. And then as for the truck station over here, I think we'll just wait and see how resources start stacking up here, if we get more or less of them popping up, but hopefully soon, once the numbers update, we'll start to see that reflected at these platforms here. So I think that's all we'll do in terms of our truck station at the cargo hub here. Hopefully these numbers are figured out. Let's go take a look back at Birmingham and see how things have updated up there. And it seems like nothing's really updated here yet. We can see this line has 4 machines on it, which is good to see, but I think some of our other lines here, such as this food line, still hasn't seen any resources yet. And I think that might just be due to our trucks haven't been able to reach the distribution center yet, so the sort of updated pathing for where those resources go hasn't fully made it up there just yet. And now I want to check back up on this fuel line, as it's been quite a while and our boats have hopefully finally spread out across the whole line here. it seems like there's still bunches of them, as some of them aren't carrying full loads of oil or anything. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But it does seem like we are slowly getting up to being fully leveled up on this whole line. Our oil wells are maxed out, so that's good to see. Our oil refinery is just about to fully upgrade there. And then down here, this fuel refinery itself is still continuing to level up as it gets more and more oil from these boats. So I don't think we're going to see this line at maximum efficiency anytime soon still, but we can take a look at our finances and you can start to see how it's slowly ramping up, and we even made a profit somewhat recently. So again, very promising things from that, and hopefully soon we'll see this up and running at maximum efficiency. And so one thing I want to do quick is take a look around the map and see if there's any passenger connections that we can make due to our destinations layer. As you can see, we do have some very strong demand on some of our roads, so if we can identify what's missing there, sort of how we can fill those connections, we can force more people to use our public transportation lines. Alright, so again, the first thing I noticed with our destinations layer is this strong connection pretty much from Santa Clarita and I suppose maybe even Montgomery, depending on how far that extent is, coming all the way in to Scottsdale. Now, we do have our capital city pretty much fully covered in terms of buses, so anything that involves public transportation should be faster than taking this road through the cargo hub, which pretty much tells me that any sort of private transportation we see coming in or out of Santa Clarita, at least heading towards Scottsdale, is coming from the areas that aren't covered by our bus stations in Santa Clarita. And so we can see here, taking a look at our train stations and everything, we did just have a train leave almost completely full from Jackson, Santa Clarita, and it looks like our bus stops here are very full, so I think it's pretty much just a matter of redoing the bus network here and then maybe taking a look at the trains, as the trains will probably need to be upgraded for the new demand that we'll have coming through here. So I think the easiest way to go about this is to delete all of our bus stops. And Santa Clarita is very large, especially up here, all this low density stuff. So we'll probably split this into two lines. One that covers this sort of downtown area where the higher density stuff is, and then another loop that comes up here for all of this low density area of the city. Alright, so we have our first set of loops going. We have everything that covers down here, and then of course we have the reverse loop going. All those buses are updating and getting on their new line. We did lower the amount of buses since we had a ridiculous amount on here before. I think we could even still sell a few more on each line and still be pretty okay, because this is a small station that we'll have to keep up demand with, so we don't want to completely fill it with traffic of buses. So we'll set up our loop up this way, and then hopefully we'll find a nice balance of vehicles for each line. So one last thing we're going to do to help facilitate bus movement around the city is just clean up some of our intersections along our main roads, and potentially just throughout the city, as it does get messy in some areas. Especially here, you can see this is not that great. So we'll pause. I think we'll just smooth out this curve. So we'll bring this around, do something like that. And then I don't think we need this connection. These connections get very weird. So we'll delete that. as well as this area, and we'll rework the intersections here, as I'm not entirely opposed to it. So we'll bring this road up to connect there, and I guess I'm okay with this being a 5-way intersection right here. We will upgrade this road, as we'll probably want this to connect somewhere along there. Here's another road that doesn't necessarily need to be connected. This can be cleaned up by dragging a road to this intersection, and that can come here. And then I think pretty much everything else out here on the main road is pretty okay. We will fix this, whatever's going on here. So we'll get that reconnected like so. And just looking around in the rest of the city, some more weird stuff. Like this doesn't need to look like that. We can just bring this road over and this road over. This area, although it is bad, it doesn't seem to get a lot of traffic, so I think we'll leave that. Up here, this area could get fixed up a bit. We definitely don't need a 6-way intersection right there. So we'll just simply do that. Upgrade this road. We don't need these connections. This whole area can get simplified into something that looks more like this. And I think that's it for reconnecting our roads. Looks like that's not going to make a connection. So I think let's leave it off like this and see how our buses do now. Alright, so now while we slowly wait for our buses to make their way through, we did make some more adjustments with some roads just to allow traffic to flow a little bit easier. We do sort of have a wave of cars coming through, but I think that's just all the traffic that was built up finally being able to get out of the city. So it'll take a little bit for things to clear up, but we can see our line of buses starting to make their way to our bus station, and once they're there, hopefully they'll be spread out far enough that they won't be causing any traffic issues. Alright, so while we wait for the demand on our buses to make its way through, as we can see we have tons of people waiting at almost all of our stops. Let's take a look at our train line, as I'm sure this will need some attention as we start to upgrade this. So currently these are the trains we're running, and they're not bad trains at all. I do, however, want to take a look and see if we have anything better than this that could probably fulfill our needs more than this train could. Alright, so this train here actually might be a pretty good replacement for what we're currently running. You can see it's almost 2 million cheaper a year to run. In terms of its top speed, this one is faster. In terms of its power rating, they're about the same if you take a look at the stats here. Despite the new train being faster, they can still get up to their top speeds in about the same amount of time. The only thing is the capacity difference. So the old trains have a capacity of 198, the new ones have a capacity of 115, but I think if we just replace these, we can just simply duplicate this and get a 4th train running on this line, and that'll pretty much fulfill the need that we had before. So we'll keep an eye on this and make sure that it still functions as it should, but the combination of the higher top speed and lower running costs, I hope, will be reflected pretty well, especially on this end where we're trying to keep our Jackson-Scottsdale train station pretty empty. Alright, so coming back to Santa Clarita, it is still taking a while for things to work out. Perhaps maybe we have to rework how they enter and exit the city, but for now, we'll give it some time, see if it just simply needs to slowly work its way through. And while we wait for that, let's take a quick look at some of our statistics, as we haven't looked at this in quite a long time, if not ever yet in this series. So our finances here, you can see, are doing very well. Our planes are actually losing us money, but it is getting better. As you can see, probably because our planes that we recently added are slowly getting fuller, so that's something good to see. We can see railroad by far is making us the most money. You can see it's almost triple of any other type of transportation that we have. Checking our finances chart, you can just see how this has changed over time. Although it does get a little bit weird here. For some reason, I think the finances glitched out, so unfortunately we can't see 50 years to the past, but we can see the most recent 25 years and how our income has slowly gone up as well as our expenses. You can also see that reflected here in our balance, where we've basically have been shooting up with our money the past 10-15 years or so. So we are on track to get to, I suppose that would be 100 billion in maybe the next couple of episodes. Next, taking a look at our tracks, you can see how this has grown and sort of when we started really implementing electric tracks, and how our tunnels and bridges have grown, high-speed rail. We still have a good amount of lower speed rail, as you can see by the gap between these two. Moving on to towns, you can really see how our population has really started to explode pretty much since 1977. And it seems to be exploding at a faster, if not the same rate as it was before. So that's something that we'll look forward to. I think sometime soon we will start to reach maybe the upper limits of these towns. I'm not sure if there's a maximum town size, since we are playing with the natural city growth mod, so that adjusts how the cities grow, but hopefully we'll be able to see this curve start to slow down a little bit, because keeping up with this amount of population is starting to prove to be a little bit of a challenge. And then lastly, moving on to our headquarters, here you can just see pretty much all of our stats. There's not really anything to talk about, but we will scroll through them for you guys to look at. And so with that, that is all the statistics of our transportation company so far. Here's some of our town statistics if you wanted to see which cities were the biggest so far, which seems to be Jackson, San Jose, and Modesto. You can also see other things such as the emissions in those cities, how fast they're growing. So I think our fastest growing city is currently Scottsdale, followed by Winston-Salem, followed by Jackson. Those make sense as we've been focusing on those cities recently. And lastly, we can pop in here and take a look at some of our vehicle statistics, since we haven't shown much love for the lines that are making us a lot of money recently. So here you can see we have quite a couple of trains making us more than 10 million per period. If we look on the flip side of that, we can see a few vehicles. So keep in mind this is vehicles, not lines. So some of these numbers are multiplied, and some of these aren't actually representative of the vehicle because it takes so long, such as these trains here on the cargo hub to Albuquerque Winston-Salem line. These just haven't made a trip recently. But if we wanted to take a look at our lines, our most profitable line is just under 50 million, and it's actually our grain line, which is somewhat surprising. I didn't think that this train here would be making us so much money going back and forth. I suppose that could be the increase in top speed, or maybe just due to the fact of how simple and efficient this line is, but it looks like it did just get overtaken by one of our cargo hub lines. But here you can see all the lines making us a good amount of money, a good portion over 10 million, even more, well over 1 million. And then as for the ones losing us money, there's nothing that really stands out besides our two plane lines, which I think pretty soon we'll probably sell and adjust some of these planes, so these numbers don't look quite as bad. And so lastly, I did mention that we'd probably look into where we're going to expand our cargo hub reach to next. And I believe the only cities not connected to the cargo hub yet are Downey and San Jose. And I think we can do something similar to how we did for Winston-Salem and Albuquerque. Because these lines are so long, instead of creating a bunch of huge trains coming down all on the same line, we'll have one train line come to a distribution center, and that'll either be, I think, around here or maybe somewhere in this flat area, and then from there we can truck those resources into their respective cities. And I think there's even an opportunity where we can just extend off of the end of this station and bridge across this gap and come over to sort of behind the quarry, and that would get us almost exactly where we would want to, as this flat area here looks like a pretty nice open area to create a distribution center for these two cities. But that's something we'll explore very soon, so if you guys have any ideas of where we should go, what we should do, or how we should get there, please let me know down in the comments. But as for that, I think that's going to be all that we'll do in this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.